Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking at page 11 of our notes, and you completed the M&M activity in class up to question number 15. So all we have left is to fill in the chart and page 12 of our notes. So just a reminder that if we have a horizontal line, the slope of any horizontal line will always be 0. So our m is always going to be equal to 0 because it's horizontal. So the rise, remember, slope is rise over run, right? So our rise is always going to be 0 over some number, which we end up getting 0. But if it's vertical, for rise, our rise is some number. It goes up a certain amount, but the run will always be 0 because it doesn't go over any number at all. And we can never divide by 0, so we end up getting that our slope is undefined. Okay? Now, if you remember, when we have a horizontal line, it was always in the format y equals a number. So for example, y equals 6 right here. If you look, it has that y-intercept of 6 right here. But the slope is always going to be 0. It's always going to go across over. It's never going to go up or down. So every single y value, if you notice, will always be 6. It's constantly 6. So in this example, y will equal whatever the y-intercept was. If the y-intercept changed right here, let's say the y-intercept was negative 2.7, for example, the y value will always be negative 2.7, which is your y-intercept. So your equation will always end up being y equals b, okay? And then for a vertical line, if you notice in a horizontal line, it's always y equals the same number. In a vertical line, what will end up happening is that we will always end up getting x equals the same number. So for example, if I had x equals 3, if you notice right here, my x-intercept is 3, but every single point along my line always has an x value of 3. So my y value is constantly changing, but my x value is staying the same. And that's true for any x value I choose. So for example, negative 7.5, my y-intercept, my x-intercept is negative 7.5, and any point that I choose on my line will always be, have x is equal to negative 7.5. Now I cannot use y equals mx plus b for my equation right here because the slope is undefined, so there is no m. And there is no y-intercept because it never crosses the y-axis. So right here, our equation is always going to be x equals a, where a is the x-intercept, just like b was the y-intercept up here. Okay? All right, so let's apply that information right here. So for questions 16 through 19, graph the lines on the graph paper. So here, if it's y equals 9, it means y will always be 9. So here, for example, y is 9 here because this coordinate is 0, 9. If I go to this coordinate here, it would be 8, 9. Here is 0, 9, right? Any coordinate of 9 for my y value will be on my line. This point right here, for example, would be negative 5, 9. So all these points right here will always work. So y equals 9 is going to be a horizontal line, and it's going to go through right here. So it's going to look just like this. So this equation right here is going to say y equals 9. And because it's a horizontal line, the slope is 0. Also, we can look at it and see, oh, it's y equals 0x plus 9. So my slope is going to be 0. Okay, awesome. For x equals negative 4, this time all my x values will always equal negative 4. So I'm going to draw a line that goes through x equals negative 4 right here. Make sure you don't go through y equals negative 4, so don't have it cut through the y-axis. Always have it cut through the x-axis. So x equals negative 4 is going to be this line right here. So we'll say x equals negative 4 right here. And I'm just going to label x and y so you can see that it cut through the x-axis at negative 4 and not the y-axis. So here, it does not follow the y equals mx plus b format because here there is no slope and there's no y-intercept at all. So the slope is going to be undefined. Okay, for number 18, y plus 7 equals 2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate my y right here. So if I have y plus 7 equals 2, I'm going to subtract the 7 to get the y alone, and I get y equals -5. So because I have y equals a certain value, then I'm going to have another horizontal line. So I'm going to go ahead and graph out my horizontal line right here and I'm going to have it intersect at y equals -5, which is right here. So I'm going to draw my line, and it's going to go through y equals -5. And that's my equation for my line right here. So because of the fact that it's a horizontal line, our slope is 0. And same thing, my equation is technically y equals 0x minus 9. So my slope is going to be 0. Okay? And then for my last example here, I have x minus 3 equals 4. I don't have a y variable to isolate, so I'm just going to isolate the only variable I see, which is x. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and I get x equals 7. So what that means is I'm going to graph a line through x equals 7 right here. Make sure it goes through the x-axis. So at x equals 7, this is what my line is going to look like right here. I'm going to write the equation on my line, x equals 7. And because it's a vertical line, my slope is also undefined. Okay? All right, for 20 through 22, the directions say to find the equation of the line that passes through the points given, and then to graph each line. So for number 20, I know that it goes through the points 2, 6, and -5, 6. So there are two things I need to know. I need to know the m, and I need to know the b. So to find the m, I'm going to use the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And remember, when I plug these values in right here, I'm just going to label these really quickly. Hopefully by now this piece of cake to you. So I will do 6 minus 6 over -5 minus 2. And then 6 minus 6 is 0. -5 minus 2 is -7. And when I divide 0 by -7, I should end up getting 0. Okay, so now that I know that the slope is 0, I know that I'm going to have a horizontal line. So as soon as I know that, I don't have to go through and figure out all of this extra stuff. The y value will always be 6, and if you notice, the y values were all 6 in this example right here. And if 2 of the y values are 6, then all of the y values have to be 6, because if I were to graph out these points, 2, 6, and -5, 6 right here, then the line that connects those 2 points will always have a y value of 6. So my b value is also 6. My y-intercept is also 6. So my equation is just going to be y equals 6, because every horizontal line always has an equation of y equals some number. All right, awesome. So I'm just going to go ahead and graph out this line right here. And I end up getting my line looking like this. Sorry, I will adjust it right now for you guys. So here's my line, and I am good to go for this question. Just have to label it. I'm going to write y equals 6 on my line, and I'm done with that question. Okay, so now for number 21, two things I need to look for still. I need to look for m, and I need to look for b. So we'll do this in a different color. So m equals and b equals. And so the first thing I'm going to do is calculate my m. So m equals, the formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And when I plug in that information, I'm going to get 9 minus 1 over -5 minus -5. But remember, this minus and negative becomes a positive, so I get 8 over 0, and it's impossible for me to divide 8 by 0, so I get my slope is undefined. Well, if I get an undefined slope, that means I can't use m or b, because that automatically tells me that if I have an undefined slope, I have a vertical line. And every vertical line always starts with an equation, always starts with x equals. Well, what's x going to equal? If I look right here, all my x values are the same. X equals -5. And if I were to graph out the points, -5, 1, and -5, 9, I can see that my x values will both be -5, and it's going to be -5 everywhere along the line that I'm drawing right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw this line right here so we can see it. So the line that connects through these 2 points right here is a vertical line, and it cuts through the x-axis at -5. So I get x equals -5, and that's my equation of my line right here. Okay? All right, in number 22, this time, if you notice right here in number 20 and 21, if you notice that the x or that the y values were the same here, you can go straight to saying y equals 6. If you notice that the x values are the same here, you can go straight to saying x equals -5. But if you notice right here in this example right here, the x values are different and the y values are different, so there's no way that this is going to be a vertical or a horizontal line. To verify it, I'm going to graph out both points. So I'm going to graph out -2, 8. And I'm also going to graph out -6, 6. And I'm going to see when I graph these 2 points out right here, if I were to try to connect the dots right here, there's no way that I would end up getting a vertical or a horizontal line. So I need to calculate what m is, and I need to calculate what b is. So I've got x1, y1 here. I've got x2, y2 here. So m equals, formula says y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. When I plug in that information, I end up getting 6 minus 8 over -6 minus -2. Remember, this turns into a positive. So 6 minus 8 is -2. And then -6 plus 2 is -4. The double negatives cancel out and I get a positive 1/2. So I know my m is 1/2. Now to find the b, all I have to do is use my equation y equals 1/2 x plus b, because my equation generally is y equals mx plus b. I'm going to plug in my points right here. So I'll use -2, 8. So I'll plug in 8 for y. So I get 8 equals 1/2. And then I will plug in -2 for x. And then I have this plus b right here. So I end up getting 8 equals, well, what's half of 2? Half of 2 is 1. So a half times 2 is 1. A half times -2 is -1 plus b. Now to solve for b, I just add 1 to both sides and I end up getting 9 equals b. So that means that I know my information to write my equation. So y is going to equal 1/2 x plus 9. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and graph this out. So I would start my graph right at 9, and then I would go up 1 to the right 2. But if I run out of room, I can always go down 1 and to the left 2, and that intersects with one of the points that we said should work. And then if I keep going with it, it will intersect with the other point that we said should work. So now all I have to do is connect my dots, write my equation on my line, and I am done with that question. So y equals 1/2 x plus 9. And if you notice again, it was not a vertical or horizontal line because none of the x or y values matched, or none of the x or y values were the same. All right, have a great day.